and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester, an Odyssey sports station.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Ambers. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
Hey, a very good afternoon to you. Welcome into the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia, Rochester's only local sports talk show, and we are glad that you're with us today at AM 950, 95.7 FM, the free-to-download Odyssey app, or on our YouTube channel. You can check us out at The Fan Rochester, where we stream on YouTube and also on Twitch. I am Danger, that misfit over there. That's Gene Battaglia.
Not a misfit, buddy. How are you today? Where's my box of wine?
Absolute misfit. To
Where
show
is
you
it? Yeah.
how much class I have.
What do we buy?
I bought you a nice box of Brosé so that you and the look at those grubby hands reaching. Just can't wait to claim his prize for winning the Aaron Rodgers bet. Enjoy your dry Brosé. I'm going to try and forget that your sportsmanship is so lackluster. I'm going to try and forget that you prank called me yesterday just over 24 hours ago.
Hey, Danger, you got me? Danger.
Is this? Yeah.
Yeah, you lost the bet. You lost the bet. Box wine. Bring it to me now, buddy. Hanging up.
Hanging up on me. You know what? As I do, I take the high road. You won the bet fair and square. Aaron Rodgers is a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I hope you and the executive producer enjoy that beautiful box of Brosé.
Let me, as Desi and Lucy used to say, let me try to explain myself here.
No, you don't have to.
No,
you said everything you need to say. You did all you need to do. I think we get it.
We go to break, and I'm reading all these things online about me hanging up on you, and I'm like, hang up? I didn't hang up. When I tell
You even said, hanging up now, click. You even telegraphed the hang up. I'm like, did he just hang up on me? He hung up on me.
When I'm telling you, I must have blacked out. I don't remember doing that. Obviously, I did it. It's right there. I can't deny that.
You blacked out so much that you had to say what you were doing. Hanging up now, click. I mean, it was
there was another element too. So you weren't here yet. Like, why would Gene be calling?
This
Danger?
is sad. This is a sad state of affairs.
Hey, Danger, you got me? Danger.
Is this? Yeah.
Yeah. You lost the bet. You lost the bet. Box wine. Bring it to me now, buddy. Hanging up. You didn't recognize the call?
No.
It wasn't a prank.
So yesterday, I was up against it yesterday. I had a mountain of things happening that I had to get done, and I'm in the middle of it all. I look at my phone, and I see a number that I don't recognize, or at least it's not a number. You know how we've become so conditioned now that if somebody calls us, we look for their name or we look for their image. It's, that's somebody I know. And when I just see, random numbers, I'm like, I don't know what that is. I don't know who that is. I might just let it go to voicemail. But when I saw 585, I'm like, God, I got a lot of work going on at the house. Maybe it's one of the contractors. I don't know what's going on. Let me pick it up. But I also, in the back of my mind, I'm like, this could be like a spam call. I don't know what this is. So
Sure.
I've got my guard up. And by the way, doesn't it show where we are as a society when the scariest word you can hear when you pick up the phone is congratulations? Like, as soon as I hear that, I want to hang up the phone. But I didn't know what it was. And because I didn't hear anything right away, I'm like, oh, God. And now I'm triggered because I'm like, oh, God, it is a spam call. And so I didn't recognize your voice right away. But then when you...
Right, because I from the headset, I have to transfer that through the air. So you had that half thing. So almost like it is a telemarketer call. But as I'm doing this, now trust me, this is what I'm thinking at the time. Is this actually a good idea? Because where you weren't there, you're dealing with an issue, and I can only imagine that maybe you're on a Zoom call, maybe you're around with some manager from Odyssey across the country, and you have to deal with this in the middle of it, where the situation you were dealing with had, it wasn't about fun and games or anything, nothing to do with Rochester, nothing personal or anything.
No.
But the idea that maybe the timing wasn't appropriate, that's why I just wanted to tell you in person and then step off the mark, which I didn't do a good job of if I hung up on you.
You were too fired up. You
Yeah.
did. You blacked out. This is what happens when you have a win. When you take a win, I'll take the L. I lost. I lost the bet. I'm a man of my word. You have your box of wine for you and the executive producer, but this is how you react to getting a win.
Hey, Danger, you got me? Danger.
Is this? Yeah.
Yeah, you lost the bet. You lost the bet. Box wine. Bring it to me now, buddy.
This is why
Hanging up.
This is why I dub you a misfit. Do you win so infrequently that you have to do that? That you have to prank call your friend, your coworker,
I didn't
and
prank
hang
you.
up the phone?
Didn't.
Disgusting.
Why would you think that was a prank? You didn't
Disgusting.
recognize the number. You didn't recognize my voice.
Absolutely disgusting
I mean,
behavior.
the only thing I broke was I actually kind of broke the law. I should have said, "My Danger, you're now on the air."
That was a sad display of sportsmanship. Absolutely sad. I mean, to be fair, I know that when I won the Bill Belichick boxed wine bet, I think I said "pay up, bitch," which isn't
That's-
very
yeah.
respectful. But at the same time, to call me and hang up on me and to do it with such vigor and such hanging up now.
Hey, Danger, you got me? Danger.
Is this? Yeah.
Yeah, you lost the bet. You lost the bet. Box wine. Bring it to me now, buddy. Hanging up. How many telemarketers will call you Danger? 0.
Hanging up.
So who is this? Who I don't know. I don't know my co-host.
I didn't recognize the number. You didn't really give me a much to go, and I had a lot going on. I had a lot of people calling me up yesterday saying, Danger, I need you. Danger, I need you to do this. Danger, could you do that?
There's one question here that you haven't answered and you haven't addressed. Did I actually break the news to you? Did you know in advance that Aaron Rodgers that you had lost the bet?
In the world that we live in now, I did get an alert on my phone.
Yeah.
And when I got the alert on my phone, I'm like, ugh, all right, fine. And, I should have known that yesterday would have been the day. I wasn't on the air yesterday. Big news only breaks when I take a day off.
Correct. So when you're gone here later in the month, we're going to have lots of news.
Yeah.
Lots of news coming up, man.
I mean, it's almost uncanny. When Diggs got traded, I was on vacation. Rodgers signs
Deshaun
a random Thursday. Deshaun, all of it. It's uncanny.
You and I, Chris Taylor fired. What?
Right.
Yeah, that was
Another one.
Yeah.
We've got a fun show lined up for you this afternoon. Lots of guests, and we're on the air today. And many people in our community are carrying a little bit of a heavy heart today. And I didn't know this news prior to getting dressed this morning, but I threw on the Amerks cap, and it turns out that today we will tip a cap to a Rochester American legend who is gone far too soon. We heard earlier today about the passing of Amerks Hall of Famer, Calder Cup champion Scotty Metcalf, who passed away earlier this morning at the age of 58.
Scotty Metcalf, 9 years with the Amerks, and came into professional hockey as a goal scorer, as a creator, and you know what? He changed. He became the enforcer. And in his time in Rochester, he became Mr. Rochester. We all have, Danger, a Scott Metcalf story. Like when you're out or you're kind of with the team, and 96 was a lot of fun. Scott Metcalf was one of us. He stayed here in Rochester. He raised a family here in Rochester. And to hear this at age 58, suddenly, it's a drag. And just reading just the from when the Amerks posted this, just the outpouring, and it was only fitting that it was a rainy morning here in Rochester today. So I'm kind of bummed that we lose Scott Metcalf at the age of 58. We're gonna talk about it. Jody Gage, perhaps the greatest Amerk of all. He made Rochester his home. He was teammates. We will talk to Jody Gage coming up at 4:05, and somebody who has covered the team for decades. He himself also in the Rochester Americans Hall of Fame. He's now with the Rochester Business Journal and Pickin' Splinters. Kevin O'Klubja will give his thoughts coming up at 5:45.
Yeah, terrible loss for the Amerks organization and for our community. The passing of champion Scotty Metcalf at the age of 58. Man, guy was a former first-round pick of the Oilers. And played so many 9 seasons in Rochester over different stints. He was a fan favorite. I played a couple of charity hockey games, against the Rochester Americans alumni. The guy was always class, always carried himself, funny guy, fun guy, lots of stories. Just a tough blow to hear that he's gone at such a young age. And you got to think about his wife and their children. His wife Jane, Tanner, Quinn, Keegan, everybody in the hockey community. I think they all have a Scotty Metcalf story.
We all do. Mm-hmm. And if you have one, you're certainly welcome. Our handle on X, The Fan Rochester, 866-4FAN, 866-430-26. Jim Riley has thoughts on the Atlanta Braves. Now, this is another story from yesterday, Danger. Like, this was I baited him into hanging up, but it was the Atlanta Braves were up by 7 runs yesterday in the 9th inning, and they lost.
Was Fates on the air when this happened?
They had just completed the collapse. 11-10, they lose. We asked Jim to come on because in any direction we could go, certainly you've got Yankees, Red Sox. That's interesting. The Dodgers are, by their standards, farting around. What's going on with the Dodgers? But Jim's like, hey, I've got thoughts on Atlanta and what they should do. And it's an organization, Danger, that has talent. Some are calling for Snitker, the manager, to be fired.
Yeah.
After their guy, Shaw Shaver, I think his name is, he gets hurt on the mound last week where you can tell they're not pulling him out. He ends up blowing out his elbow. So we'll get the thoughts here of Jim Riley, Ballcap Sports. He's got some Rochester roots, too. He's coming up in the 4 o'clock hour.
Armando Salguero from Outkick stops by the sports bar in about 15 minutes as well. He's got a piece out on the Aaron Rodgers signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers and whether or not you'll be able to tell fairly quickly just how invested Rodgers is in this season, according to Armando.
Yeah, I mean, Armando's point of the timeline because, Aaron Rodgers is here for mini camp, but really, what can you learn? How much chemistry can you develop in 2.5 days? Probably not a lot. However, July 23rd is when the Steelers open camp. Is Aaron Rodgers is going to bolt after this? He's like, okay, thank you. Got my playbook. We'll see you July 23rd. All right. That's not what you will want. If Aaron Rodgers shows over the next month that he's there working with because the coaches don't break. And believe it or not all the players do. Some will still hang around and work. And if Aaron Rodgers wants to put in, if he says, hey, DK, hey, to all these guys, Robert Woods, the whole team, Freiermuth, let's put in a little extra work. They're not going to say no to the guy. But we don't know that.
I have such a curiosity about how it works between Arthur Smith and Aaron Rodgers. That, to me, when was the last time Aaron Rodgers was on a team where he didn't have any of his guys? Like, he didn't have his guys. You know what I'm saying? Like, He's always had one of his guys, whether it's a receiver, a coordinator. You know, he didn't really have that. From what we think we know about Arthur Smith, pretty arrogant guy, my way or the highway type of guy. And will those two personalities gel? I have a hard time with that one. That one is what's going to be what I'm curious to see as far as how that dynamic plays out in Pittsburgh. But listen, Steeler fans, there's a lot of people that are against this move, that are against this player. I would challenge you and say, has there been a better quarterback for your team since the retiring of Ben Roethlisberger? The answer is no. The answer is no, Gino. There hasn't been a better quarterback.
This is me thinking. No.
No, the answer is no. And so, yeah, he's 41. And yeah, he has the baggage that he has. But he's still the best thing that you've had since the retirement of Big Ben. What's the worst thing that happens? The worst thing that happens is you lose games because he gets hurt. Maybe you have to put in the rookie. You get to see and evaluate what Will Howard is. If you have a rough season after making this move, you're in a position to draft your future franchise quarterback, which you haven't been.
But this is look, and it could all be fun, and you can win games. And hey, instead of being the 7th seed, we're the 6th seed this year, and we even might win a playoff game. Reading Armando's piece, I learned that, wow, it's the Steelers and the Dolphins with the longest active playoff losing streak. The Steelers haven't won a game since 2017 in the postseason. That's not good for a franchise we all hold in high regard. Danger, you're describing a scenario where they're not going to put themselves in a position to draft the next guy. And in next year's draft class, okay, this is rich. So this is the Steelers just kind of middling the road here, but I think it's worth exploring because we're all dumping on this. Could this actually work, and to what degree? Armando Salguero, he's one of our favorites. He's from Outkick, joining us here at the bottom of the hour.
Our lines are open. You can pull up a stool and join us anytime this afternoon, 585-866-4FAN, 866-4326. We're also on X at The Fan Rochester. I mentioned our YouTube channel, The Fan Rochester. You can comment there. We've got Chris, one of our loyals, in fact, the most loyal of listeners to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. I think that Gene Battaglia isn't a misfit. It's too nice a term. He's Shadow Gino driving a beige Impala, calling Dan Fates and the icon Mr. Mouth. That's Chris's term for you, Shadow Gino. Yeah, you have a dark side, Gino, a dark side, a mean streak. You know, you're more than a big timer.
The Mr. Mouth thing. Yeah, and Mike Catalana is coming on Monday, by the way.
This is Gene. We've got a history now of you showing just a little bit of gravitas.
By the way, where's Mr. Mouth Fates? Where's Mr. Mouth Catalana? Like Catalana, great showing by the Phillies this week. 1 run.
Stop, Gene. Stop, Gene.
Yes, Mets parade. Let's do this.
Don't do this to yourself.
The Mets are really socking the ball.
Don't do this to yourself.
East side, west side. See, that should be our song here in Rochester. East side, west side.
If you're watching at thefanrochester.com.
Oh, I forgot the camera.
Yeah, I'd like to apologize. The unbridled enthusiasm for Gene Battaglia.
The Mets!
That was chapter 1 in the saga.
That, you love that piece of audio, because what happened next? Well, that was the year the Mets kind of fell apart, and they ended up losing to the Padres in the playoffs.
We don't have to look back that far to see other instances of you just displaying misfit behavior.
Again, thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah, Dan, appreciate it. And look out this week. LGM, good talking to you, Dan. Bye.
Yeah.
Oh, Gene!
Yes!
No, you social misfit. Oh, we want to have Dan back on with us. Now, you just hung up on him.
I didn't hang up on him.
Now you see. Now, anybody that wonders, why do I call Gene a social misfit Mets fan? Now you see the disrespect.
He was going to get his Braves propaganda out over the air.
Oh,
I will text him. I will apologize.
at least I know I'm not the first person that you've hung up on.
Hey, Danger, you got me? Danger.
Is this? Yeah.
Yeah, you lost the bet. You lost the bet. Box wine. Bring it to me now, buddy. Hanging up. Well, you didn't bring it to me right
You blacked out because you became a 6-year-old. That's what happened there. You blacked out because you became a 6-year-old. You lost the bet. Nanny boo-boo. You lost the bet. Point and laugh. Hang up now. You're the guy that used to call the radio station and prank call the radio. Hey, I'd look to order a pizza. Click. Coward.
I don't remember saying the hanging up part. Obviously, it's there on tape. Obviously, it happened. Yeah, I just, you know what's probably set me off? That you didn't know it was me.
I didn't know it was you.
You didn't know it was me.
I was dialed in on something else.
Who's this?
Oh, God.
Who?
So good. Just so good. You lost the bet. You lost the bet. Yeah, hang it up. Click. What? I didn't even get to say it. Coward.
Hey, Danger, you got me? Danger.
Is this? Yeah.
Yeah, you lost the bet. You lost the bet. Box wine. Bring it to me now, buddy. Hanging up. Now,
Don't call me buddy and then you hang up on me. That's friendly.
well,
That's what you do to a buddy.
I want to thank, on the one hand, Derek for stepping up and being on the show. We had a lot
Pizza
of fun.
dude.
He was a lot of fun yesterday. He labeled that MP3 file, Gene is a jerk.
He's not wrong. Own it. And enjoy your box wine.
See, now you could look at this a different way. You'd be like, wait, maybe Gene will be allowed to bet more with me.
Right,
Yeah.
right. All right. Well,
But it has to happen organically.
Uh-huh.
We did get that suggestion too, and
This,
forgive me.
You didn't want to do this one. This was one that I kind of egged you on a little bit. You were like, I can't. I got lost to Belichick. I can't anymore. I got you on this one. Well, you got me because obviously I lost the bet. Hanging up. Click. What? No!
Next time it won't be box one. We did have a suggestion. Forgive me. We had somebody come up to us at 3 Head, said, "Hey, you guys got to raise the stake. You got to be something better tasting than box wine."
Yeah.
And I know you're a bourbon guy.
I am a bourbon guy. Yeah. And you converted me to box wine. If I'm going to drink wine with my meal.
Summertime patio, yeah.
No, for me, summertime patio, it's bourbon or a IPA or beer. But, if I'm at dinner, if I'm having a dinner, if I'm sitting down for dinner, glass of wine out of the box. Oh, I'm easy, good, fresh. We got to get to Armando, Mr. 305. Outkick, Armando Salguero joining us next. We'll talk about Rodgers, the Steelers, and how quickly we'll be able to find out just how all in Aaron Rodgers is with his new team. Next on The Fan.
Sports Update.
Tough loss for our hockey community. Rochester American Hall of Famer Scott Metcalf has passed. Metcalf played 9 years for the Amherst. Scott Metcalf was 58. Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final tonight. Edmonton up 1-0 on Florida. Chris Knobloch is the head coach of Edmonton.
Physical play is important, but probably staying out of the penalty box is more important. So we want to be as physical as possible without taking penalties, and we want to check well. And I think to do that, you have to be moving your feet, having your sticks in good places. So going forward through this series, we want to be as physical as possible, but the primary focus also is making sure that we're not giving them power play opportunities.
Yankees open a series tonight in the Bronx against the Red Sox. The Rochester Red Wings continue their series tonight in Worcester. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Top Shelf Sports Talk. Your hangout in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia on the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Welcome back to the Sports Bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. Fun show lined up for you, although we do have a bit of a heavy heart today knowing of the passing of Scotty Metcalf, Rochester Americans Hall of Famer and champion. We'll talk to Amherst Hall of Famer Jody Gage later on this afternoon. We'll also check in with Kevin O'Klubja, the Rochester Business Journal. He'll stop by during last call to share thoughts on the passing of a Rochester Americans legend. We'll also talk some MLB with our pal Jim Riley from Ballcap Sports on YouTube. Jim Riley joining us at 4:25. Of course, yesterday the big news out of the NFL, Aaron Rodgers signing with the Pittsburgh Steelers, all pending a physical, but all accounts are that Rodgers will be in attendance for mandatory minicamp with the Pittsburgh Steelers getting underway next week. Armando Salguero, one of our favorites, Mr. 305 from Outkick, joining us in the sports bar. Talk a little bit more about how quickly we'll learn just how all in Aaron Rodgers is for the 2025 season. Armando, it's great to have you back in with us in the sports bar. Given his recent history here, do you get any sort of sense that Rodgers will stick around at the facility after minicamp and be fully invested in the preseason? Just as recently as last year, we saw him kind of go at his own schedule.
We're going to find out in the next week. And the way that we're going to find out is when the Pittsburgh Steelers open mandatory minicamp on June 10th, which I do believe is, Tuesday?
Yeah.
Yep. And it goes through the 12th. If Aaron Rodgers is a participant as opposed to an onlooker, we're going to know that chances are that he's been working out. Chances are that he's been perusing the Steelers playbook even perhaps before he put his signature on a contract. And chances are the Steelers will think that he's in fairly good shape. Beyond that, the next month after that, in fact, the next 5 weeks after that, Steelers players are off. So does Aaron Rodgers, who hasn't taken part of the entire offseason program and any of the OTAs, does he head off back home? Does he go off to wherever, his little heart desires on a vacation? Or does he stay in town and work and catch up? Those two things will provide clues as to whether Aaron Rodgers is full-on mercenary mode or if he really intends to make a go of it this year with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Well, I would think if you're bringing in an Aaron Rodgers, you're going to have to craft an offense that tailors to him a little bit. And maybe that next month, even though the majority of players won't be around, you would figure. But how do you think this works out, actually, with Arthur Smith? Will this be kind of a clash of personalities? Because Arthur Smith has his system, and also it seems kind of weird at this point that Aaron Rodgers, what we saw with the Jets, he doesn't have his quote-unquote guys working with him at this point.
Yeah, I think, look, at the end of the day, I think that the Aaron Rodgers experiment in Pittsburgh is going to be a net upgrade over last year. In fact, over the last couple of years. Now, does that mean that we're going to see MVP caliber Aaron Rodgers? Probably not. Does that mean that Alan Lazard all of a sudden goes and gets traded to the Pittsburgh Steelers? I don't know. But I do know this. The whole Aaron Rodgers as general manager of the New York Jets was a mess. It didn't work. A lot of the guys that he had brought in, the offensive coordinator that he wanted, it all led to 6-11 last year, and just not the kind of results that anyone wanted. So if Aaron Rodgers is smart, and he is, he's going to make the best of this by trusting the coaches that are in place. Mike Tomlin is not like any other coach that Aaron Rodgers has ever had, ever. Aaron Rodgers was in his third year when Mike McCarthy took over in Green Bay. And last year or the last couple of years, he was with an unproven coach and coaching staff as well. Mike Tomlin isn't that guy. So it would behoove Aaron Rodgers, I think, to trust Mike Tomlin's instincts and his coaching staff.
Armando, mentorship is tricky in the NFL, and I think it was just last week or maybe a couple weeks ago now that Joe Flacco in Cleveland gave what I thought was a really good explanation of why he or any veteran quarterback can't truly be a mentor behind showing up and playing at a high level, because it's a question without a correct answer if you're in that position. With all that in mind, where do you believe Will Howard fits in here, if at all, into Pittsburgh's long-term plans at quarterback?
Well, long-term is a way different question than what Aaron Rodgers is thinking. Aaron Rodgers is going to be 42 years old, and he signed a one-year contract. Is he going to be around long-term? No, I don't think he will be. And I think everyone knows that. So if Will Howard is, coming to mandatory minicamp next week and training camp in July and going, I'm going to pick Aaron Rodgers' brain. I'm just going to let him download all his information on me, and maybe he'll show me the secret to completing a Hail Mary pass because he's the best of all time doing that. Then Will Howard is going to be sadly disappointed because I don't think that's what Aaron Rodgers' intent or even his personality is about. He will bring guys along, but he's not anybody's father.
Armando Salguero from Outkick talking about Aaron Rodgers, who will be in Pittsburgh next week. So if you're a Steelers fan, Armando, how would you define success? I mean, is there a benchmark like 3,500 yards, 25 touchdowns? Would you say getting a playoff win? As you pointed out, the Steelers tied with the Dolphins for the longest playoff losing streak right now in the NFL. How would you say this is a successful move or not?
Right. So I think Steelers fans are pretty smart. They are that fan base. There's a few of them around, Bills Mafia being one. I would say to you that they are more interested in winning than watching Aaron Rodgers do great personally, individually. Aaron Rodgers last year threw 28 touchdown passes. That's good. I know of a lot of quarterbacks that would take it. By the way, 28 touchdown passes last year was more than Patrick Mahomes. And yet it was a disaster. It was terrible. And he didn't play well at the end of the day. The team didn't play well at the end of the day, and everybody got fired. Now, if Aaron Rodgers comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers and throws 21 touchdown passes, but they're top 5 in running the ball. Last year they were number 11. And their defense balls out. They're going to be good. They're going to be real good because they don't need MVP Aaron Rodgers to be good. They might need MVP Aaron Rodgers to win a Super Bowl, but I don't think anybody's really expecting that. They need good enough and don't screw it up, Aaron Rodgers. They haven't had that a whole lot the last couple of years, even the last couple of years with Ben Roethlisberger. So I think that success is measured when all is said and done, do the Pittsburgh Steelers, who have a 6-game losing skid in the playoffs, they've been one and done five times in a row that they've been to the playoffs, do they actually have some success in the postseason? That's what will measure success for the Pittsburgh Steelers with Aaron Rodgers.
Armando Salguero, Outkick, our guest in the sports bar. It's Danger and Battaglia on the Fan Rochester. Armando, you mentioned the Steeler fan base. They're a smart fan base. They're not all crazy about this move. You mentioned Ben Roethlisberger. I think Rodgers is the best quarterback that they've had since Roethlisberger retired. And even at the end of his career, you mentioned it. It wasn't pretty with Big Ben behind center for Pittsburgh. But something I don't think we can rule out entirely here is the possibility that Rodgers is bad, that he just doesn't have anything left, that he's hit a wall. So bad that the Steelers might find themselves picking in the top 10 of next year's draft. And if you're a Steeler fan, is that some sort of silver lining for what this – it feels like a golden parachute for the organization if this experiment for one season fails.
In that regard, I guess you can call it a no-lose situation for the Steelers, right?
Right.
Because they went out and got the biggest quarterback name arguably in free agency, and if he totally bombs and it's a dumpster fire, next year they're going to be trying to chase perhaps Arch Manning, perhaps Garrett Nussmeier or Lenore Sellers or even from Penn State. What's his name? Drew,
right. Drew Aller. Drew Aller.
So either way, the Steelers have an idea that it's going to be okay. Now, here is the disaster area. If you look, good is the enemy of great. Jimmy Johnson told me that years and years ago. If the Pittsburgh Steelers are 9-8 and they sneak into the playoffs like they did last year, losing 4 in a row at the end of the season, and then they find themselves, next April in the draft picking 13th, 14th, and they can't reach one of the star quarterbacks, one of the premier draft pick quarterbacks, they will have neither succeeded this year nor succeed in getting a quarterback next year. So for the sake of the Pittsburgh Steelers, they better be pretty good or they better be pretty bad, because just in between that is just a mess.
Armando, if we look at the AFC, I think there are 3 teams that are, shoo-ins. You could say, okay, they should contend for a Super Bowl. Kansas City, Baltimore. Maybe this is the year Buffalo finally gets over the top. We have to throw Cincinnati, I believe, into the mix. Is there any realistic shot that the Steelers, best case scenario, can join that conversation? And second part of it, is anybody else I'm missing, like a Denver or any other team like that you could see rise up here in the AFC?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you mentioned Denver. Look, guys, I'm never going to be one to tell you absolutely no way, except for the 2019 Miami Dolphins. But, that I knew was going to be a cluster. But I would say to you that, and I do really like the Denver Broncos defense. That is maybe, undercover the best defense in the AFC, if not the NFL. I would say to you that Aaron Rodgers is more of a name than he is, the guy that we all remember behind that name. And it's different to go and beat Justin Fields and the Jets, or, somebody, subpar, than when you have to go and play Lamar Jackson twice and Joe Burrow twice. And you have to, if you're in the postseason, play Josh Allen, and he's sacked. Oh, no, he's not. He just broke 3 tackles, and he's running for 42 yards and a touchdown. It's hard to match up with that. And Patrick Mahomes the same. People are sleeping on the Kansas City Chiefs. Here's an idea. Don't. They're still good, by the way. So the bottom line, I guess, that I'm trying to make, the point that I'm trying to make is the Steelers did what they needed to do to compete, but the competition above them is clearly better. And those teams that we mentioned, the Ravens, one of them is in their division, and they're going to play them twice. I don't know what the Bengals are going to be, except that they're going to score a ton of points. And then the Bills and the Chiefs, they're going to factor, of course, because they happen to have been in the AFC Championship game last year. So, no, Steelers, nice, but there's like maybe two steps above nice.
Armando, you can't throw that chum in the water about Miami and not give us a little bit more color. I mean, what are you seeing this year out of your Dolphins here this offseason, and what's your outlook for the 2025 season in Miami?
Wow, my Dolphins. If it's my Dolphins, I'm selling. So as we speak, they are trying to trade Jalen Ramsey, who is their best defensive back on the roster. And the reason that they're trying to do that is because Jalen Ramsey lost respect for Coach Mike McDaniel, and there is no going back, and Jalen Ramsey wants nothing to do with Mike McDaniel, and, by the way, vice versa. So there's that.
Wow.
Your best defensive back wants out, and you don't have a replacement. They also lost Javon Holland, who was their second-best defensive back in free agency, to the New York Giants. And Teron Armstead retired. He was their best offensive lineman. If you ask Chris Greer, everything's fine. It's all good, he says as the house is burning around him. It's fine. But, they're probably going to be the second best team in the AFC East because the Patriots are still going to be figuring it out and the Jets are not good. But that doesn't mean that the Dolphins will be, anything to really write home about, I don't think.
I was just going to ask you about the Patriots because I think most Bills fans would look at that, and maybe that's just the history going back to last decade, and maybe it's Diggs, maybe it's something. But what is the gap overall between Buffalo and the division? Because I think most of us here in Western New York are almost thinking this is a given, Armando, that if Buffalo stays healthy, the division once again will be theirs.
Absolutely, 100%. The only way that is not the case is if somehow Drake May is the second coming of, Tom Brady or Dan Marino or somebody, and he just wows everybody. I think he's going to be okay. I think he's going to be even good at some point, but I don't know that some point has arrived. And you have to understand that Mike Vrabel, who's a very good coach and is going to have a disciplined team, a team that doesn't hurt itself typically, it takes a while to establish that culture. And it's one of those things where a while is not defined by the 6 months since he got his job or this coming season either. So, again, it would be a surprise if the Bills don't win the East. But I don't think that's probably their initial goal. But I don't think that's really what they're looking at as their overall goal.
Armando, before we let you go, what are you covering here as we get ready for mandatory minicamps, and what can we check out more of in your work here at Outkick as we head into the dead part of the NFL schedule?
No, I appreciate the question. So obviously the last couple of days has been about Aaron Rodgers, right? Before that, Anthony Richardson, oh boy, when he gets shut down, it's a bad combination when a developmental player that needs reps and practice is shut down from his reps and practice.
But Armando, that's great. It's more of an opportunity for your guy Daniel Jones, who you came on this show saying on draft day, I don't get it. I don't get what the Giants see in Daniel Jones. We have long memories here in Rochester.
Thank God for that, because, for a minute there, I looked like I was a tremendous foof and didn't know what I was talking about. And then Daniel Jones did Daniel Jones things, and, all of a sudden I won't look so bad. But you're absolutely right. Thank you for remembering that. I appreciate it. Makes my day. Good way to go into the weekend.
Armando, thanks for your time as always, and let's talk as the season gets closer. Thanks so much, Armando.
All right, man. Be well.
Thanks, Armando.
As our buddy Armando Salguero, you read his Work It Out kick covering the NFL. Fantastic.
That story got buried yesterday. Danger, the idea that, wait a second. So you're talking about the Colts quarterback, Anthony Richardson, rookie season, lands on his shoulder, out for the year.
Out for the year?
In his rookie season.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm recapping everything.
Yeah.
And then year 2, not great, taps out, questions everywhere.
Yeah.
All right, year 3, get it together. We're going to bring him in, and here he is in minicamp because it's the AC joint in that shoulder that he had season-ending surgery on that it's flaring up. Whoa, that's really bad. Is this just a little cautionary thing, or is this something serious? It's not good for the Colts, certainly.
No, not a good look. But now you have Danny Dimes. Daniel Jones is there. So what are you worried about? Colts are going to be fine this year, right? With Daniel Jones, it'll be just fine. I was looking forward to that competition. I want that competition. I want to see that drama unfold in the preseason. And they're saying he's out for how long?
Oh, we don't know. Indefinite.
Jeez.
And then Steichen's pressed on that, and he's like, I can't put a timeline on this. Okay.
I always start to wonder if it's more than just an injury.
Well, who knows?
Right?
Who knows?
Right? Could it be, yeah, it's not really an injury other than, we are not seeing eye to eye at all. Like, this is not working.
I don't want to go down that path because that's an allegation that if it's
yeah,
true,
of course. But you have to wonder, did he lose that locker room last season when he tapped out? I think he did. I don't know that there's any player in the NFL that views that and says, oh, yeah, we're okay with that. I mean, who amongst us hasn't wanted to tap out? The problem is you don't. You don't tap out. You keep playing. You're a warrior.
Problem is that the guys around you are giving everything they can. And
correct.
If it's not going your way, well, it's football. It doesn't always. Quite often, it's not going to go your way. How do you react? That was as poor a response as I've ever seen the NFL from Anthony Richardson.
Hey, we haven't had a chance yet this afternoon to talk about Game 1 of the NBA Finals. My goodness.
Whoa.
And I wanted to take just a few minutes here before we get to Mr. Amherst, Rochester Americans Hall of Famer Jody Gage, who's going to join us in just a couple few.
Yeah, remembering the life and legacy of Scotty Metcalf, who passed today. Well, if we said Game 1 could be lost by the Knicks, the series could be lost in Game 1. Do we say the same thing last night? That was a boring game. It wasn't well executed, and you let Indiana hang around. It was almost like Oklahoma City didn't realize what could happen. And we had Trista on the show yesterday. I said, how do the Pacers win this? And she's just simple. Indiana has to go nuclear. They didn't, but they did it again at the end. So they did this to Milwaukee. They did it to Cleveland. They did it to the Knicks. And there was Game 1 last night in a game that looked like I was watching something in the month of December.
It's crazy. That was, I mean, like, the NBA has a lot of problems, and this is just another one of those problems. This is your marquee event. This is your major of all major events. It shouldn't look and feel like a Wednesday night broadcast on ESPN in the month of December. You put more effort and energy and style into your NBA Cup games, into your in-season game, your in-season tournament games, right? That's the in-season tournament. That's when I would be doing all the flash. That's when I would be doing something different. At minimum, bring back some of the things that we recognize. Put the NBA Finals logo with that beautiful cursive script. Put it on the court.
That was missing.
Put
graphic from ABC didn't have anything.
They had a gold trim around the scorebook. I don't know if you caught that.
That's what it meant?
That was a massive lift by ESPN. I'm sure that effort, somebody had to take a day off after efforting that hard to make it look special. Remember they used to have the Larry O'Brien trophy at center court, like in the court. They don't even have it on the jerseys anymore. Like
No.
The TV presentation didn't have player introductions. I know the national anthem isn't something that that everybody wants to see but like, give me some stuff that gets me fired up. Watch what college basketball does in the Final Four and tell me that's not great. That doesn't give you goosebumps when you're watching it.
And in the play on the court wasn't great either. OKC, yes, you had a 10-point lead. They were off. Indiana was off in the first half.
Good defense. I mean, 19 turnovers in the first half.
You compare that to game one of the Cup final where those two teams are killing one
Correct.
another and they go to overtime. Now, the Cup final ratings, this is worse since the COVID year, which you got a Canadian market. What are you going to do? I'm not going to put too much stock into that. There's time for – look, there's nothing to say the NBA can't be like, you know what, we've got to put the finals logo on there. No, but you know what? They sold it to an airline.
Yeah.
Make sure they make their money
Right.
there.
And you look, it's a business after all. I get it. I just think it's kind of comical that they put as much effort and energy into stylizing what the in-season tournament is going to look like. But when it comes to their marquee event, they actually scale back. It doesn't make any sense to me. That's your marquee event. You should put a little bit more into it for the production, for the viewers. Get me fired up, get me excited. I'm not expecting you to play Alan Parsons Project while you're introducing Michael Jordan. I mean, like, I know that those days are gone, but get me fired up.
I agree.
Doris, you're part of the problem now that I mention it. All right.
Why is that?
Well, it hasn't been the same. Hasn't been the same since Jackson and Jeff Van Gundy left the table. Well, what are you going to do? Maybe you're around next year. Maybe you're not, Doris. Sorry about that.
It's okay.
We'll get to Mr. Amerks. Mr. Rochester American, Jody Gage, Amerks Hall of Famer. We all have heavy hearts today for the Rochester Americans. Our community lost a champion in Scotty Metcalf, and we'll share some thoughts and share some stories with Jody Gage, Rochester Americans Hall of Famer, stopping by the sports bar next on the Fan Rochester.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia. WBEE HD2 Rochester and streaming online and in the Odyssey app at The Fan Rochester. The sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
You can make the argument he was the toughest guy ever to put on an Amerks sweater. Hall of Famer for the Rochester Americans, Scotty Metcalf, passed today. Former Amerks Marty Baron sharing his thoughts.
He was a larger-than-life personality, a veteran that had words of wisdom, did things his own way, played the game extremely hard. It was a ton of fun to be around. He is a Calder Cup champion with the Amerks. Was always very involved with the Rochester Americans alumni, the Sabres alumni. Just a joy to be around.
Metcalf played 9 years for the Amerks. He was 58. We'll talk to Mr. Amerks himself, Jody Gage, who joins us next year in the Sports Bar. Game 2 of the Cup Final tonight. Edmonton up 1-0 on Florida. The Red Wings continue their series tonight in Worcester. The Yankees host the Red Sox. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
It is D-Day, and it is an incredibly important day in the history of the world. Thank you to everyone who made the ultimate sacrifice.
And the passing of Amerks Calder Cup champion and Scott Metcalf.
Halliburton has it with 3, driving with 2, pulling up, and hitting with 0.3 of a second to go. How many more times can this team do that?
Aaron Rodgers has officially signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Danger. Yeah, you lost the bet. You lost the bet. Fox wine. Bring it to me now, buddy. Hanging up.
Enjoy your box wine.
Hey, Gene, this is Big Time Brian.
Welcome to the National
Stanley Cup Final, Game 2 between Edmonton and Florida.
Dallas Stars fire Pete DeBoer.
Mike Danger, Gene Battaglia.
What happens when you acquire enough Muncie points?
Let's go! 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
We're back in the Sports Bar. Danger and Battaglia, glad you're with us. It's Friday. We have the weekend in front of us, but we do have a bit of a heavy heart today upon hearing the passing of a community favorite, a Rochester champion, Amerks Hall of Famer Scotty Metcalf, passing at the age of 58 earlier this morning. We welcome in Mr. Amerks, Rochester Americans Hall of Famer Jody Gage, to share some of his thoughts, some of his stories, and man, I know how much Metter meant to you, meant to the organization, meant to the community. Jody, how you holding up today, pal?
Yeah, it's a tough, sad day. It's been on the phone talking to a lot of ex-teammates, his coaches, and it's tough. It's like losing a brother, and he meant so much to the organization, and really, thoughts and prayers go out to Jane, Tanner, and Quinn, his kids. It was unexpected, so we're all with heavy hearts right now.
Jody, one thing I want to commend you and Matter, that when your time was done in the Amerks, you stayed here. And to see the outpouring on social media today from Amerks fans, just everybody has a Scott Metcalf story. I mean, he was part of this community, and this is it's not just a loss for the Amerks; it's a loss for all of us in our town today.
Well, it's something that Scott took a big pride in. He loved being, a Rochester American. He played hard, gave everything every night. He was gritty. He was a guy that you hated to play against. He's a guy that you truly loved. So when he was on your side, he was a great teammate, wanted to win, and it went in the community. He was always one of the first guys always to pick up the phone. Even when I came as general manager, asking somebody to get out in the community, he was always willing to help. Just a great person, and just a large personality. When Scotty, would come into a room or whatnot, he was the Metter. And he just loved the area, loved his teammates, and always had our backs. And it was always great spending time with them. But it was always great playing on the same line with him, because you knew that you could play a little bigger with Scotty on the ice with you.
Yeah, absolutely. A guy who ranked number one all time in Rochester Americans history in penalty minutes. So talk a little bit about his legacy as a player. I mean, we know some of the history, a former first-round pick of the Oilers who ends up being traded to Buffalo and of course, spending that majority of time in his career playing here in Rochester over the course of 9 seasons. But the grittiness and the toughness of this player, it's something that feels like we don't see a lot of anymore in the game.
Well, first of all, we got to say Scotty was an all-around player. Everyone just thinks he was a fighter. Scotty always had fighting for a purpose, always sticking up for his teammates. He would, wasn't the biggest of guys, but he'd go the biggest guy. It didn't matter. If the team needed it, he was going to step up for it. But people don't realize what a good hockey player Scotty was. He was a line mate with me and Gates. I think when I scored 60, I think he might have had 20 goals that year. He was a highly skilled player. And Scotty was going to play whatever way he needed to play to help the team win. That's the part that a lot of people didn't realize. They always seen his toughness and his great sticking up for the players. And let's face it, that's why he was a fan favorite. But he was also a highly skilled player, and he would do whatever it took to win a game. So if we needed a big goal, Scotty was going to be there in front of the net, taking the pounding to get that goal. And that's why he was a great teammate, and he wasn't shy. If you weren't pulling your weight, Scotty wasn't shy to let you know it. So that's why he was a great team and why we had a lot of success. And even the 1 year, I think when Boxy put a line, he was mostly a winger, and all of a sudden he put him at center. So he would play, any of the forward positions, whatever the coach wanted him to do, whatever the team needed to do, Scotty was there.
Well, the last time this team, this franchise, hoisted the Calder Cup, Jody, I was there that night. It's such a special night, that win over the Portland Pirates, and I got that. That's part of Scott's legacy too. That he was a champion here in Rochester. Any memories from that '96 team with John Tortorella and the Amerks, who started off poorly, but in the end were the champions?
Well, Scotty, that year was tough with Torts, especially early on. There was the Torts guys, and there was the Steve Donner guys, and just a quickly, thing, and Scotty wasn't in favor of Torts. As time went on, the line that became the important line, that was the checking line that scored so many big goals, was Dan Frawley on the right wing, Scott Nichols at center, and Metter on left. And really, that's the line that would shut down the top team, but then also was putting goals in. So, like everyone, if you didn't really know the game, that line was the line that really, was really important for us to win the cup. That line, they were inseparable. I was on the phone earlier with Sprouls, and I was texting with Scotty, Nichols, and, the other famous line was Rob Ray and Kevin Kerr when I was on the phone with those two. And, they just talked about how great Metter was and what a great teammate he was. So,
yeah, and Jody, I mean, every locker room is in need of that kind of leadership, that kind of a guy that will hold his teammates accountable, that will be there for them, have their back on the ice. I mean, is that when you get to this point of the season, and we don't have to talk about this year's Amerks team, but when you look at the teams that are still playing hockey, whether it's in the NHL, the AHL, you just see more and more of those type of players on the ice, do you not?
Well, the game is evolving, and you're seeing the players like Metter are starting to come back into the game. So if you look at the Florida Panthers, the Kachooks and whatnot, and you still have to have grit, you still got to want to win at all costs. Those teams are going to usually win. Usually talent wins, but hard work, grit, and whatnot. And you're seeing the playoffs right now with Edmonton was matching Florida's physicalness in Game 1. McDavid's going out throwing hits and whatnot, and you need somebody to follow, and that's your players like Scotty Metcalf or Rob Ray. Everyone thinks they were just for toughness, but Scotty could play. He was on the power play, kill penalties, block shots. He could do it all. And if we needed something, he was the spark plug that would get us going. If we were flat, and the coach didn't have to tell him. He would just go out there and start a fight or get something, get the crowd going into it. And so it wasn't that something like he just enjoyed. He just knew it was part of the winning and was part of our Amerks tradition. When I was talking to Box, it was about our character. And it started with a lot of guys like Frawls and Metter and even the skilled guys. We all had this wanting to win at all costs. And I'm at the distillery right now, and we used to have lunch games for scrimmage, and you wouldn't believe on how physical those games were just for lunch. we were very competitive, and we'd go at each other. It's we had this mentality that we really believed we could beat the Boston Sabres. We could beat NHL teams. I'm not saying we could, but we had the attitude that, we could. If we were in a game with them, we believed we could, and that's the mentality we had.
Scott Metcalf, an Amherst for 9 seasons, passing today at the age of 58, and a teammate majority of the time here. We're talking to Mr. Amherst himself, Jody Gage. Jody, I'm recalling a conversation we had, it was either last year, sometime, with Seth Appert. And Seth, of course, had this background in player development. He's talking about, guys when they're playing down in juniors and you go to the pros, hey, most of the jobs in the NHL, you have a goal scorer. You're going to have to figure this out. And was that part of the journey here for Metcalf, too? Because just looking at his numbers, we think of him this physical guy, but my gosh, he was putting up more than a point per game in junior hockey. And then he comes and he develops this role. Like, how important is it for not just Metcalf, for players to figure out? Because I'm also looking at a guy like Brad Marchand. I mean, I'm sure he put up a lot of points in juniors, but he certainly found a role in the NHL.
Well, that was the talent. That's why I was trying to say everyone just thought that Meta was just a certain type of player. He was a skilled player. He played for Team Canada, and it was a famous Team Canada where they were going to win the gold medal, and a Russian player jumped one of the Canadians, and they started a brawl. And Meta was one of the guys in there. It was about protecting his teammate was more important than the gold medal. And it's been a debate up in Canada for the whole time about what was the right thing to do. And Don Cherry was talking about it and whatnot. It's your teammate is more important. And that's the type of thing was Meta always had your back. And that's why he was loved by his teammates, but also loved by the fans. He never took a night off. Yeah, he had bad games, but I'll tell you what, he gave 110. And, when Meta was playing, he was going to give his all. And, he would do whatever it take, play center. But he was way more skilled than people give him credit for. Look up his stats for the Amherst. His numbers would go up and down. It wasn't because of performance, because the coach put him in a certain role.
We're talking to Jody Gage in the sports bar Danger and Battaglia. Scott Metcalf passing away earlier this morning, the age of 58. Jody, I've had the chance to play in charity games with you, with Metter, with the Amherst alumni, and I know how involved he was in making sure that the guys that are still in the community remained out in the community. There's still a lot to be sorted out, but I mean, what can the community expect in terms? You can't replace what he's meant to the community, but we certainly know and love the idea that there's a lot of Rochester Americans alumni that are still in Rochester.
Well, he helped build the history of the red, white, and blue, and it's important for former players like myself to talk about, what he's done in the community, what he's done to the next generations, for them to carry it on. That's why we've lasted 70 years in the American Hockey League, and it goes back to the Dick Campbells, the Horvaths. Red Armstrong was a similar type of player, and that's what you want. And we've got a great history, and Scott was a big part of our history. And, I'm just very fortunate to got to know him as a person, as a human being. He was a brother, and he was a great teammate.
Jody, really appreciate your time on such a difficult day, and this would be the last one for me because you talk about the history, and if there's one thing kind of moving forward, it's that, it feels like Rochester Americans hockey these last few years is back. You go through some of the dark times with the Florida franchise, and you just don't know what's going to happen. But to see that barn full, your thoughts on just kind of the state of the franchise right now, coming off a tough playoff loss, but certainly, there's a lot of hope for next season here too.
Well, we all go through ups and downs, whether season to season, right? It still gets back to you got to recognize your history, and then your future moves on. But the great thing about our franchise is the people of Rochester, and that's what why Metter stayed here, you know, the Langdons, myself, Jordy Robertson. We love the people of Rochester, and it's the fans that really make it. So when you put fans in there, 9,000-10,000, it's a great building. It's exciting, and the players talk about it, and then the players want to be here. They stay here, and our front office with Warren and Chad, they're always trying to get the players out in the community, and that's something that I try to instill in the next generation. It's not just about, yes, it's about winning and losing hockey games. That's up to the coaches' part, but the front office part is carrying on the tradition that we're out in the public. We're doing all this charitable work. We're giving back, and I'm proud of the alumni, but also the organization, how much we get involved in the community. But the reason we get involved in the community is because the community's been great to us. So it goes back and forth. It's a win-win. The fans are doing what they do, give it to the players. The players are trying to give it back. And our players, you know, throughout the years, and there's been some down years, maybe we didn't do it, but the last few years, I'm very, very proud of the coaches, the players, how much they're getting out of the community, the staff, how hard they're working to get out in the community. And when you're giving out the community, the fans appreciate it, and they're coming to the game. So it goes back to George Bergans, who was the GM that brought me here. That was his philosophy, and it's carried on.
Jody, it's an absolute delight to have you on with us, you know, with unfortunate circumstances surrounding it. But I want to try and leave on a positive or a lighter note, because I'm sure you have, you know, hours of stories you could share about your time with Scotty Metcalf as a teammate. Is there a funny story, a funny memory that you have with Metter that you can leave us on?
You know, Metter was always the, you know, the party, the center of attention, a lot of those things that they're private to me. So, like, you know, we, the players, it's what stays in the locker room, stays in the locker room.
It probably wouldn't be FCC friendly anyway, so we don't need those kind of stories.
A lot of was Metter, if you knew Metter, and I know he'd love me to tell him, but out of respect of the family and whatnot, I'm not going to share that right now. It's the wound's it's too fresh right now. So if you could respect that, and then maybe one day when we're all feeling a little better, I'll share some of those stories. But right now, all my thoughts are with Jane and the family. They're really hurting, and a lot of the players are hurting. I've made phone calls, and he was truly loved by his teammates. I can tell you that. I've made phone calls and been on the phone for about half an hour to an hour, and so it's been a tough day.
Yeah, well, Jody, on behalf of our station, we're sorry for your loss, and thank you, because you coming on here today, for a lot of fans, you're speaking to them. I mean, you're helping them out here today.
Well, we appreciate their love and support, and I'm here. They're reaching out in social media, and you know, on behalf of the Metcalf family, we really appreciate it.
Jody, we're thinking of you. We're thinking of the Metcalf family, and we appreciate you giving us some time. Try to have yourself a good weekend, all right?
Okay, thanks, guys. Have a good one.
There's Jody Gage. Mr. Amherst, Rochester Americans Hall of Famer, former teammate of Scott Metcalf, passing away this morning, age 58.
Yeah, I mean, just really kind of a downer. And here would be my suggestion. I don't think anybody would say no to this. How about like a jersey patch? How about something on the ice next year? I mean, something on opening night has to happen. I'm sure that I have no doubt, because when you talk about most popular Amherst in history, 9 years on the team.
Yeah.
9.
Now, the guy's absolutely he's a Rochester legend, and we'll remember him as such. And I, you know, having shared a locker room with these guys just for charity games, they're characters, man. There's a lot of personality. It's a lot of fun. A lot of great memories, a lot of unbelievable stories. It's a shame, and you know, we're certainly thinking about the Metcalf family. Rochester lost a good one today.
We will talk to Kevin O'Klubja, who just put up a piece of Pick and Splinters, looking back at the life of Scotty Metcalf. That'll be coming up at the end of the show today. We'll talk some baseball coming up next. Our guy Jim Riley. What's wrong with the Braves? I mean, it used to be Danger Memorial Day. That was the time, but now with the expanded time that, okay, you should start getting worried. Are you concerned with the Braves? The makeup of this team? Should the manager go? He's got some thoughts on Atlanta.
We'll get to Jim Riley, Ballcap Sports. You can check out his channel on YouTube. He's joining us next. Talk some MLB on The Fan.
Sports Update.
Really tough loss for our hockey community today. Rochester American Hall of Famer Scott Metcalf passing away. Metcalf played 9 years here in the Amerks. Part of that 96 Calder Cup team. Metcalf was 58. Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final tonight. Edmonton up 1-0 on the Panthers. Edmonton's head coach is Chris Knobloch.
Physical play is important, but probably staying out of the penalty box is more important. So we want to be as physical as possible without taking penalties, and we want to check well. And I think to do that, you have to be moving your feet, having your sticks in good places. So going forward through the series, we want to be as physical as possible, but the primary focus also is making sure that we're not giving them power play opportunities.
Majors tonight, the Yankees hosting the Red Sox, the Mets in Colorado. Interesting series in Detroit, where the Tigers host the Cubs. The Red Wings continue their series in Worcester. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The beer is cold and the wings are hot. You're in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia on the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Some 585 roots for our next guest doing big things on YouTube with his channel, Ball Cap Sports, talking Major League Baseball with our pal Jim Riley in the sports bar. Danger and Battaglia. Jim, lots to dive into as the season is now obviously in full swing, and we're starting to get a sense of who's real, who's not. And one team that was a surprise for their inefficiency out of the gate and has kind of surprised us with their inability to kind of get things going, the team we wanted to start talking with you about. What do we make of the Atlanta Braves on June 6th?
Gentlemen, it's great to be with you as always. This Atlanta Braves team, think about this for a second. We are really just a couple of weeks. If this Atlanta Braves team can't turn this thing around from potentially actually being sellers at the trade deadline, or at least in July, fielding calls as if they are in sell mode, it's really remarkable. There's, all facets of the game here. Defense is good. Defense is probably the best area of this team. But from a pitching and a hitting element, it's really sketchy. And specifically pitching, it's late in games. They're giving up home runs. They're walking the most. Like, this is when, Raisel Iglesias is out there, the closer, the should-be closer, I should say, because he is completely fallen apart. I don't know if he's just crossed that age barrier where, he's just not going to be as effective. There isn't as much spin on the ball. There isn't as much life on the ball, but he's given up home runs. He's given up hits at rates we've never seen. So the back of the bullpen is an absolute mess. And like I said, when games are late and close, they are giving up home runs. They are walking batters, so they're giving free base runners. For context, to give you an idea on the walk situation, nobody in the National League has walked more hitters than the Atlanta Braves late in games. It's 44. Second place is Miami with 35. So that's the pitching problem. Because if you go look at the stats, you're going to look at the stats. You're going to say, the pitching should be fine, but it's when they're giving up the runs that they're getting crushed. And then when it comes to hitting, and I almost forgot. Because of that pitching element, 9-16 in one-run games. Imagine if that was flipped. If they were winning their one-run games, they'd be above 500 right now. But they're losing those games from a hitting perspective, not scoring enough runs, striking out too much. They are a bottom 3 team in the National League in runs scored. When runners are on base, when runners are specifically in scoring position, they are bottom 3 in runs driven in. They don't get on base. They don't move the line. They don't collect hits when the runners are in scoring position. I mean, this is how you fall apart. You give up runs late, and when you have an opportunity to score runs, you're not coming through. Again, you're not moving the line to the next guy, and if you do, the next guy's not getting a hit. It's just this is the stuff you don't really find at the back of the baseball card, because if you look at Ronald Acuna's numbers, you look at Azuna's numbers, Riley, you look at the stats, you're like, wait a minute, these guys should be fine. But it's these clutch moments that this team is just fallen short, and you can blame it on Snit, you can blame it on preparation. I mean, you can point your finger in any direction at this point when the Braves are where they are. Again, if this continues for a couple more weeks, and I think it will, I do not like the Braves' schedule in the month of June. They have the Giants this weekend. That's going to give them a problem. They have the Brewers next week. They have 7 games against the Mets still to play this month. They have the Phillies, who are struggling now, but they don't see the Phillies till the end of the month. Guys, bottom line is the Braves are in trouble. It's real. Anybody that tries to soften it is just blindly just again, maybe they're like looking at the back of the baseball card numbers, because it's bad. It's bad, it's dangerous, and the Braves are in trouble.
Well, the 1 year they did win the World Series, they were below 500 4th of July. Like you can pull yourself out of it. You've laid out the problems perfectly. Is this just not a situation that's screaming for a managerial change? And if you need an example, I mean, this is embarrassing. What did you make of the story where one of their bright young pitchers, A.J. Smith-Shawver, he's on the mound. The story is this: he's going against Trey Turner, and it's Spencer Strider who's watching this. Is like goes over to the pitching coach and manager, like, hey, look at this. He's wincing when he's throwing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how does the pitching coach, how does the manager not pick up on this? Because I don't know if that saves him from a torn UCL, but that's what he has now. We're going to wait to see how long he's going to be out.
I mean, those are the moments you can't have, because that's recent. That just recently happened. The story you're saying isn't from back in April. This just happened. So that, on top of everything else that's going on, it's more damning evidence that is pointing in the finger that, or pointing in the direction that maybe there needs to be a change here. I mean, look, I don't know. The Orioles have turned things around. The Orioles have swept back-to-back opponents, the Rockies, but it was the Rockies, but they just swept the Mariners. Would this be happening with Hyde? Would it not? We'll never know, but you sort of set that message to your team that what's happening is unacceptable, and that motivates. I mean, I talk to Ryan Ripken every other week on the channel. He's a guest, and obviously he's going to be as connected with the Orioles as you can be. And it was heartbreaking inside that clubhouse when Brandon Hyde was fired. And it was almost it was another blow, but it was one of those that was kind of like, guys, you got to get it in gear. Because even people that beloved individuals in this clubhouse, if it's not working, changes have to be made. And I know Snit is respected and beloved in that Braves organization and in that clubhouse. But, I mean, what else can you say? That maybe whoever's making the decisions or is trying to give the inspirational pep talks, something maybe needs to be a new voice.
Jim Riley, Ballcap Sports on YouTube is the channel to check out for all things Major League Baseball. I want to talk about another team that I know a lot of people in the preseason were pegging for the World Series out of the AL East, and it's a big series this weekend that we're going to be paying attention to with Boston traveling to the Bronx. Talk about that June schedule for the Red Sox here in a kind of time of year where if you don't get through the month of June and you're trending in the right direction, you're ready to pack it in.
This is the worst timing for a schedule that Boston has that they're staring at. So 4 games below 500 as we are sitting here talking, entering a series against the New York Yankees, and really the class of the American League is the Tigers and the Yankees. And the Boston Red Sox, sitting 4 games below 500, have to play the Yankees 6 times, back-to-back weekends. This weekend and next weekend. I don't care if they're going to get a series in Fenway Park. That doesn't matter. This Red Sox team is just a mess. And on top of having these games against the Yankees, they've got the Mariners, they've got the Rays. Rays are playing great right now. They get the Giants. That's bad news. They have a brutal schedule. They only play the rest of the way teams that have a record below 500 in the month of June. They have 4 games this month against teams with sub 500 records. And by the way, they just finished the series against the team with a sub 500 record. That was the Angels. And guess what? The Angels won that series. So this is bad news for Boston. I know Bregman is missing time, but this is a big problem. Red Sox fans, another buddy of mine who has a Red Sox podcast on the Foul Territory Network and follows the team closely, you've got Red Sox Nation ready to send Cora packing. And it seemed like he was one of the managers that would be, untouchable in a situation like this. But the Boston Red Sox team, the way he's handling the bullpen, the lineups that he's throwing out there, no one's happy with what's happened with how he's running this club, and the results are there. I mean, this is under 500 club, but the talent speaks otherwise.
We're talking to our buddy Jim Riley, Ballcap Sports, which you can catch anytime on YouTube. Great source for baseball info. And Jim, the series I think that is the most interesting, Detroit hosting the Cubs this weekend. You've got Skubal on the mound tonight for Detroit, and it's not a stretch to say, hey, could Detroit make the World Series? Well, no, that's not a stretch, but what about the Cubs? What do you make of the Cubs here? That's a division that should be theirs. Do they have enough at this point to be a serious contender?
I think they do. I think this team, at some point Imanaga will be back and he'll be locked in. They're getting some great performances from Boyd and Tyone. There's a good staff here. What the Cubs need to do, and Jed Hoyer has already outlined this, is really load up on pitching between now and the end of July. I think they have to target a starter. There have been, Jeff Passan just put one of his trade deadline preview articles up, and he had Sandy Alcantara as the best fit for the Cubs. I actually disagree with that a little bit. To go after a top of the rotation arm, yes, that is what they need to do. But Sandy Alcantara, because of the control for multiple years, is going to cost a lot. I think the Cubs, and there's some volatility right now with Sandy. He's not pitching like you would want if you're going to trade for him. They need to go up, but they do need to go out and grab another starting pitcher, because if you see Boyd go down or you see Imanaga go down in October, you got to have a backup. I would love to see them go out and grab a rental. If the Diamondbacks don't get back in it, which they just swept the Braves, so maybe they're in the process of getting back in it. But if they fall back, Zach Gallen could be available. If the Brewers hit a losing streak, Freddie Peralta could be available. That market, the pitching market specifically for starters, still has to take shape because there's some fringy teams that we need to find out which way they're going to go. But the Cubs need to capitalize on that because they have an incredible offense. The lineup just goes top to bottom, makes you, if you're a pitcher, you're sweating every single pitch, every single at-bat, and that'll wear on you. They'll break you down. It's a tremendous team. And if you put them in a series against the Dodgers or when the Phillies get right, and I think they will, the Phillies rotation, there's some teams here that in a series you need to have just be a loaded a stacked deck when it comes to your rotation, and the Cubs are maybe one piece away. That's the main focus. Go after a starter, maybe grab another bullpen piece, and there'll be a lot of that available. The Cubs team is dangerous, and I love that the Cubs and Tigers are playing. Those are my two top teams right now in Major League Baseball, the Cubs and the Tigers, so it's great that we get to see them go head-to-head. Love Skubal on the bump. This was a close one. If the Tigers had played on Monday, so they had the off day on Monday, if they had the off day on Thursday, Skubal would have pitched on Wednesday. So the baseball gods and the scheduling gods shined down on us and placed that off day on Monday, which pushed Skubal to today. It's great.
We're talking to our buddy Jim Riley, Ballcap Sports here, as we take a look around the league here and about those L.A. Dodgers. Now, they just split with the Mets, but hey, you lost the season series to the Mets. Is it just a matter of getting healthy, or does it get to a point where you just keep tallying these things up and we just can't pencil this team automatically to be back in the World Series here?
I feel like, because when you think about this, you have a Dodgers team that was having trouble with Paul Blackburn and having trouble with Griffin Canning, right? So you're thinking, wait a minute, what is going on? Now, I like Paul Blackburn, and Griffin Canning's having a great season. So on the sort of surface there, you'd want to dig a little bit deeper. But this Dodgers team, when they're in October, it is going to be a completely different team than what you see right now. With Ohtani being worked back, with at some point you would expect Snell to be back. You would expect Glasnow to be back. There is going to be a surge of reinforcements that come around the second half of the season. And when that happens, it's going to be a completely different team. I mean, even last year, think about it. They went through the postseason from a pitching perspective kind of wounded as it was. They had traded for Jack Flaherty, Walker Buehler. They were throwing Buehler out there. They were having to throw bullpen days. Yamamoto was up and down, but he was able to lock in for his postseason starts. I think if anybody to discount the Dodgers based on how the regular season is going, because it is certainly they're underperforming what we had expected, but there's been a lot of injuries. And you got to think about it, too. When you're the Dodgers, you get everybody's best shot. And they've played some really good teams. So when you get the Mets, which is a really good team, and when you get the Yankees and you get Cleveland, and on top of it, they're going to give you their best shot because you're the Dodgers. I mean, every game is everybody else's World Series when they play the Dodgers. So I think you'll see them rally and make a strong October push. I would still expect to see them in the World Series. Probably, if I had to give you an NLCS, I would love to see Cubs and Dodgers. That would be phenomenal. Must-see TV if those two could find themselves standing, mano a mano in the NLCS.
Jim, what do you make of the 2025 New York Yankees? I mean, I guess you look at them being in first place and you think, well, that shouldn't be a surprise. They were the American League champs last year. But then you look at the roster, the back half of the roster specifically. You look at some of the injuries they've had in the pitching staff. You look at their closer, who looks anything but the confident guy that we saw just a year ago in Devin Williams. Are the Yankees a benefactor of just a down AL East? What do you make of this team now and moving forward?
Yeah, I think the Yankees, that's an interesting question. I feel like the Yankees are, I don't know. I get pushback on this when I bring up the idea of the Yankees going out and grabbing a top starter. I get pushback all the time, but I look at it this way. When they were putting the plan together, when Cashman and Steinbrenner and everybody behind closed doors, when they signed Max Fried, the plan was to have Garrett Cole and Max Fried dominate, and then what you got from Carlos Rodon and Clark Schmidt and Luis Gil, when all of that was supposed to be on top of having just this this reincarnated Randy Johnson and Kurt Schilling thing. And Garrett Cole went down. Now, Carlos Rodon has been fantastic, so maybe that changes the plan. But I still feel like the Yankees would want to go out there and grab one of the top starting pitching options that'll be there to create that rotation that is just unstoppable in October, because that's what it's all about. This Yankees team is going to win the American League East because the rest of the American League East is way too up and down. Jays and Rays are playing good right now, but I'm sorry. I feel like both of those teams could also lose their next 3 or 4 games and be right back around 500. So I think this team will win the American League East. I'm not too worried about that. And when you get into a postseason series, it's really going to come down to how can you pitch. They've got the pieces for the lineup. Judge is having a monster season. Bellinger is having a fine season. Goldie has been good. Jazz is back. I think he'll start doing some things. This team is really going to boil down to how can you pitch when you have to go head-to-head against the Detroit Tigers, because at that point it's going to be more about pitching and clutch, timely hitting, not just can you run over your opponent with your lineup. It's can you come up with the clutch hit. So give me one more starting piece. I think this team, again, I just said I would love to see Cubs and Dodgers in the NLCS. I would love to see Yankees and Tigers. I think those 4 teams are sort of the class of baseball right now, and that's no disrespect to the New York Mets. I think they're a good club, and if the Mets were in there, that would be a great thing. But those 4 just feel like they would be that would give us the best matchups. Yankees will be there, and if they need to add, you're sort of talking about the back half of the roster. This trade deadline, what it's not going to be, at least what it's shaping up to look like, what it's not going to be is full of stars and big names. But what it could be full of is a lot of depth, and that can raise the floor for a team that maybe is looking for some extra bench pieces or some extra guys to come up late in games and maybe be a defensive replacement. There'll be a lot of depth available at this deadline, which sounds underwhelming, but might be something that could help the Yankees.
Yeah, we're talking to our guy Jim Riley. Jim, there's one, my last one for me, and it's a story that's off the field. I'd love to get your thoughts on this. Where are we watching baseball next season? So the story is ESPN opted out of their deal. So ESPN, Sunday Night Baseball for decades. ESPN has the wild card round. ESPN has the home run derby. They have a game. It's always comforting, right? And part of this equation was they were pretty much, reportedly upset that MLB started selling off pieces way cheaper to your Rokus and your Apples and everything else. The latest report I read, Rob Manfred wants a new deal in place, whether that's with ESPN or somebody else here before the All-Star break. How do you see this playing out? Because truthfully, I don't trust Rob Manfred on anything.
Yeah, Apple TV has been very aggressive, and they've built a nice product with their Friday night baseball. It feels like we end up in the world we're in, where the days of you knew ESPN on Wednesday and Sunday night, we could end up having. I mean, we have Peacock, we have Roku, we have Apple TV, Amazon. I really feel like it's going to be spread out everywhere. I don't know if we'll have that one big sort of tentpole media deal. I mean, I don't know who's going to pay for it to the degree that ESPN was at, with again how MLB is putting out their own packages, and you can get your games in other ways. We may just be entering into a new world where it's just spread out.
Jim, appreciate you joining us. Hope you have a great weekend. Before we let you go, let all our listeners know about Ball Cap Sports on YouTube. You're doing a great job.
Yeah, thank you guys again for having me on. Always love coming on and talking some baseball with you guys. The YouTube channel is Ball Cap Sports, like you said, talking about really we're in trade deadline season now. The deadline is still about 7 weeks away, but we've got articles, we've got news, we've got reporting that really hits on the deadline. So we're diving into that. We have guests coming on. We are sort of keeping our finger on the pulse with our power rankings every week. So you name it, we're talking baseball in every facet imaginable. I appreciate you guys having me on. Always fun.
Yeah, let's do this again soon over the summer.
Yes,
Jim,
sir.
thanks. Have a great weekend, bud.
Thanks, guys.
Yep, Jim Riley. There he is, Ball Cap Sports on YouTube. Check out his channel. Like, subscribe while you're there. If you're on YouTube also, check out The Fan Rochester, where we stream live every afternoon from 3 to 6.
Are you buying in on the Cubs? And here's why I've got to hit pause on that. They don't have the top shelf pitching you would need to succeed in the postseason. But as he lays out,
Shada's going to come back.
Okay, that would be one. You believe in Jamison Talion? Yeah, no, he's a perfect 3 or 4. This is the time you go shopping.
Here's the thing that, yes, I agree with that. And I agree with Riley's assessment that they go out and get a guy that would be great before the trade deadline. The thing that had me nervous about this team early in the season, I'm not as nervous about it anymore. The bullpen was a problem earlier, and they're fine now. They're one of the best in the league now, so they figured that out. Offensively, they're just a joy, man. They're so much fun to watch, and am I allowing myself to buy in? I'm allowing myself to believe they're a postseason team. Am I allowing myself to believe that they're better than the Dodgers? No. I wouldn't even say better than the Mets, because the Mets have experience in the postseason, where the Cubs, this is a young team, and Counsell has experience, but he doesn't have experience in winning in the postseason. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. I will be over the moon if I'm wrong and surprised and the Cubs find themselves in the NLCS with a team like the Dodgers. But the Phillies have experience. The Mets have experience. I just don't know that this season is the season for the Chicago Cubs.
Who's the MVP? PCA?
He's so good.
Yeah,
He's so good.
I think Lindor, what he's done for the Mets, where Soto started off slow, we know that
He's getting his swag.
Yeah.
Soto's going to be fine, by the way. Like everybody that's all over Soto, that's been all over Soto, it's like, guys, keep in mind this guy is good, and he's going to be good for a long time in Major League Baseball. If he's down, he's going to get back up. I don't buy into Soto being a bad deal. I know a lot of Yankee fans would yell at me about that, out of spite, but I think he's going to be just fine. With Soto, with Lindor, the Mets pitching, I think, is one of the things to worry about, right? When you get to the postseason, I think that might be part of why Riley has them as, maybe like the third or fourth best team in the National League.
Their bullpen's getting taxed right now, so you're going to have to tinker with that a little bit. The Mets are going to need some support. Yeah, do you trust a David Peterson? I mean, he did it last year, but Senga's the guy that's got to.
Senga's got to be the guy, right?
Gotta be the guy.
And beat the guys that you're supposed to beat, right? You got the Rockies again this weekend.
Yeah, if the Mets, now I'm calling it the drumming rule. Hey, if you win the series, everything's fine. No. If you don't sweep Colorado, it's a failure.
I agree.
But there's 162 of these. No. There are teams that are so bad, you need to win all 3 games.
Correct. Agree 100%.
So Monday, if they lose 1 game, I'm mad.
Detroit, Chicago is a fun series opener tonight with Skubal on the mound. I'm looking forward to that. That'll be a good test, I think, for both teams to see where they are. I mean, Detroit obviously is, great record this year, and the Cubs are doing their part. It'll be a fun series, and we'll see like a measuring stick series to see where each team is kind of at through the course of this weekend.
I'd like to give you an honest evaluation of what Apple TV baseball is, and I have Apple TV, but it's Friday night. Like and this is the problem with baseball. And if I am home on Friday night, I'm watching the Mets. I'm not going to flip over. But this tonight, Cubs against Skubal, okay, that might be the best game they've had yet on Apple.
Yeah, it'll be a good time. We got Stanley Cup playoff action tonight, Stanley Cup final, of course, Game 2 in Edmonton tonight as well. So plenty of action to get to and lots to discuss next when we get to happy hour in the sports bar. And before we close up shop, we'll discuss the life and the stories behind Scotty Metcalf, who passed away earlier this morning. Rochester Americans Hall of Famer, Rochester Americans champion, and somebody that covered that team and knows Scotty Metcalf well. Kevin O'Klubja, a Rochester Business Journal. He'll be stopping by the sports bar before 6 o'clock as well to share some thoughts on Metter's passing. We have time for your calls as well at 866-4326. You can join us at 585-866-4FAN.
950 The Fan, Rochester, an Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester. Sports Update.
It's a tough loss for our hockey community, our community at large. Rochester Americans Hall of Famer Scott Metcalf passed today. Former Amherst Marty Baron sharing his thoughts.
He was a larger-than-life personality, a veteran that had words of wisdom, did things his own way, played the game extremely hard. It was a ton of fun to be around. He is a Calder Cup champion with the Amherst. Was always very involved with the Rochester Americans alumni, the Sabres alumni. Just a joy to be around.
Metcalf played 9 years in Rochester. Scott Metcalf was 58. Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final tonight. Edmonton is up 1-0 on the Panthers. Baseball this weekend, starting tonight, Yankees and Red Sox. The Mets are out in Colorado. For School Bowl, taking the mound for the Tigers against the Cubs. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
It is D-Day, and it is an incredibly important day in the history of the world. Thank you to everyone who made the ultimate sacrifice.
And the passing of Amherst Calder Cup champion and Scott Metcalf.
Halliburton has it with 3, driving with 2, pulling up, and hitting with 0.3 of a second to go. How many more times can this team do that?
Aaron Rodgers has officially signed with the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Danger. Yeah, you lost the bet. You lost the bet. Box wine. Bring it to me now, buddy. Hanging up.
Enjoy your box wine. Hey, Gene, this is Big Time Brian.
Welcome to the Nationals.
Stanley Cup Final, Game 2 between Edmonton and Florida.
Dallas Stars fire Pete DeBoer.
Mike Danger, Gene Battaglia.
What happens when you acquire enough Muncie points?
Let's go!
95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
You know, I feel like we covered the box wine bet earlier in the afternoon. I'm a great, I have sportsmanship. I'm gracious in defeat. I'll admit when I admit when I've lost a bet. I don't wait. I don't hesitate. One day after losing the box wine bet, there you go. You're bought a box of dry rosé for you and the executive producer to enjoy this weekend.
For that reason, I'm not opening up now because you bought her favorite, you realize.
I know, because I think the last time I bought a box of wine for you guys, bought a box. It was a bottle of a box of the dry rosé. All of that being said, this can't stand. This is a low point for you, Gino. I don't know what this is not a low
point.
Behavior is unacceptable. This is a grown man prank calling a friend, a coworker, your co-host, and hanging up the phone with disrespect and disdain.
Hey, Danger, you got me? Danger.
Is this? Yeah.
Yeah, you lost the bet. You lost the bet. Box wine. Bring it to me now, buddy. Hanging up.
Okay. That's despicable.
First of all, where is the crank call in that? Like, you don't know my voice?
Didn't know you were calling me.
Called Danger? Okay, you don't know the studio line, which I'm calling for. I couldn't call for myself because I got to put you
It doesn't come up as the studio line. And if it did, I didn't recognize it because when you see a number that you don't recognize, when you see anything other, this is a part of, like, we've lost, because of the conveniences of modern society, it's called like the GPS syndrome, right? We've lost our sense of direction. Normal things that you would remember, you no longer need to remember. I don't look at my phone and see a number and say, oh, I know that number. I look for my phone to see a name or an image and say, oh, I know who's calling me. But if I don't see that name or that image and I just see a set of numbers, I don't connect the dots right away because we've completely been dumbed down by the conveniences of having our devices.
Well, two things. One, okay, even Derek was saying yesterday, thank you, Derek, again for stepping
Pizza
in.
Dude.
You think this is a good idea because we can't tell you everybody why you weren't on the air, but you had some other things for the company that you needed to,
Had my hands full.
Yeah, had your hands full. Yeah. And with that, I don't know if you're on a Zoom call. I don't know if you're talking with professionals. I don't know what you're doing. So me interrupting your day because you weren't on the air for a good reason, okay?
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm doing this thinking, if he does pick up, is this going to – so I'm thinking I've got to get off the mark pretty quickly.
It was just despicable.
Hey, Danger, you got me? Danger.
Is this? Yeah.
Yeah, you lost the bet. You lost the bet. Box wine. Bring it to me now, buddy. Hanging up.
It's despicable.
I don't remember saying hanging up. And then our regulars, Chris and Peter and Greg and everybody saying, how could you hang up on Danger? I'm like, what are you talking about, hanging up Danger? Derek's like, you're hung up on Danger. I'm like, no, I didn't. And that's how he pulled that. And he labeled that Gene is a jerk.
Yeah, real sad state of affairs, Gene. Mentally, I'm worried about you. But one thing is remaining constant. If you need a big story to break, just give me the day off. And you will have that. If I'm not on the air, that's when we'll get the big breaking news.
That's your dumbest bet yet. Knowing how Aaron Rodgers loves himself and loves putting himself in the media and everything else.
I fell for, I think we made the bet the day that he went on McAfee and slammed the Jets organization and put his price out there saying he would play 1 year for $10 million. And, he was talking a lot about retirement, and he was talking a lot of, the thing that I was banking on was less about Rodgers and more about the Steelers. Like, I thought the Steelers are a proud organization. They're an arrogant organization, and they're not going to wait forever for this guy. They're arrogant enough where they could try to make it work with Mason Rudolph if they wanted to. And I think they would have tried to, at least, if Rodgers ended up not signing. I'm of the mind that if you're a Steeler fan, you really shouldn't be upset about this move. There's a bunch of ways that this could play out. All of them, I think, work out in your favor for this upcoming season. He's the best quarterback you've had since Big Ben. If he gets hurt, if you're worried about his age and he gets hurt and he doesn't play a full season, chances are you get a chance to evaluate Will Howard and see if you have something in the rookie. And if you lose games, you'll find yourself in a position you don't normally find yourself in, which is able to move up and get a guy to be your next franchise quarterback. You don't have to sit back and wait or settle for a Kenny Pickett. You can get somebody if you really want to, if it goes poorly. If it doesn't go poorly, you have a chance of winning at least a playoff game, and that's an improvement.
You didn't present the worst case scenario. Like, Aaron Rodgers completely destroyed that Jet organization.
Yeah.
He really got his tentacle. I mean, it was incredible. The fact that, hey, we're trading you. We're getting rid of the dopey coordinator that I was in favor of. No, it's the head coach. Like, everybody was gone. It was a Shakespearean play. It was fantastic.
But doesn't that start at the top? I mean, Rodgers, for his part, is absolutely, the smoking gun is in his hand, but...
Well, this is the organization that goes the other direction where, you mean we should fire somebody? Like, you have Matt Canada way past his expiration. Like, I just want to see if that is actually going to be history repeating itself.
I don't know that Tomlin will put up with it. And if there is some of that going on, Tomlin will shield all of the crazy from us. We won't know about it.
That's the difference. Where Robert Saleh had no idea how to manage this
clueless.
Personality,
and also the owner, just clueless, just a clueless and a poorly run organization versus an organization that over the course of time has been consistent at minimum. And if you really want to pump up the tires, they've been a model franchise, the franchise that a lot of teams look up to. So how they deal with Rodgers, I mean, up to this point, he ain't bringing any of his guys. We don't hear of them. This isn't like it was with the Jets, where it's like, I'll go to New York and I'll play for your crappy organization, but you're going to have to bring in my guys. Here, it's like, no, I'll show up. Now, we had Armando Salguero from Outkick on with us in the 3 o'clock hour, and I love having Armando on. He's always got a fresh perspective, and his take on Rodgers is we're going to learn very quickly as soon as next week if he's just a mercenary for hire for one season, if he's really committed to playing football for the Pittsburgh Steelers. How much time does he spend? How much time is he on the field during mandatory minicamp?
Well, let's start here, because let's say he hasn't put any work in this offseason. Would that surprise anybody? Well, then, no, you're not going to see him taking snaps out there. He'll be on the sideline with a baseball cap and just kind of learning the offense. But if he's done the work, you're going to get him out there. And then part two of this is, well, the players, you won't see the players after this week, just not in Pittsburgh, most places, until July 23rd. That's a long break. The coaches don't take that break. If Aaron Rodgers is serious about this, okay, I'm here. Does he set up shop in the summer in Pittsburgh and sit down with Arthur Smith and say, yes, that play, no, this play? I mean, it could work if you actually rolled up your sleeves, but if it's if this is just an orientation essentially next week, and let's figure this out on July 23rd, then forget it. It's not going to work.
If you missed Armando, you can get that conversation wherever you get your podcast. Search out the Sports Bar. You'll find all of our guest appearances there. You can also go back and listen in the free-to-download Odyssey app or scroll back and watch our stream up every afternoon on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester. Like and subscribe while you're there. Tyrese Halliburton did it again.
I'm obviously confident in my ability and feel like if I can get to, that spot, I feel very comfortable in there. It's a shot I've worked on a million times and I'll work on a million times more. So, we just have confidence in that shot.
Killer.
Indiana down by 9 with 2 minutes to play. And if you turn that game off because you were bored, you're not alone. I was bored. I'm watching this last night. I'm like, okay, yep, exactly how I thought, and kind of little remorse that I didn't watch the end of it.
It's also, though, in the presentation. I mean, it didn't feel like this is the NBA Finals. It felt like this is a Wednesday night NBA broadcast on ESPN. There wasn't really that normal electricity that you have, in my opinion, around an NBA final. And I think the NBA is to blame for this. I mean, you don't have little details that we just grew accustomed to, whether it's the Larry O'Brien trophy embroidered on the jersey or on the court or the NBA Finals, logo with that beautiful cursive script on the court. We don't have any of that. You have OKC fans decked out in white, and it was electric. Yeah. But I mean, to your point about the game being boring, I mean, like, a double-digit lead for the majority of the game for OKC. You had the 19 first-half turnovers, and you get a sense that there's no way OKC is losing this game. Everybody talking them up going into this series, that they're going to win this series in 5. It's going to be OKC, and it's not going to be close. And with one shot, with 0.3 seconds left from a killer, we have a series. Tyrese Halliburton did it again, and I'll say it. I think he's going to go down. We can have this debate. There's a lot of clutch players in NBA postseason history.
Big Shot Bob.
Remember Robert Horry? Yeah.
Yeah, Big Shot Bob.
Right. LeBron, certainly. Halliburton's going to go down as the most clutch postseason player in NBA history. Just on what he's done alone this offseason, he's well on his way.
I think we should shame the Sacramento Kings. How did you just trade that guy away? Like, I understand, like, somebody doesn't want to play for the team anymore and you're going to kind of move, but that was a player that you didn't let develop, and now Indiana kind of enjoying this. Okay, we have a series there.
I'll say this, too. Rick Carlisle's a pretty good coach. I mean, the guy kind of flies under the radar, but, I mean, he's had success pretty much anywhere he's gone. I mean, he's a championship caliber coach as well that I think we take for granted because he's in Indiana now, but he's a pretty good coach.
He outcoached Tibbs.
Yeah.
Tibbs lost his job.
Pretty good coach.
The other story today, and this is one to just hate reporting on, very sad, and we had Jody Gage with his thoughts on it, and you could tell he was struggling. Scott Metcalf, we lost him today at the age of 58. If you've got some thoughts on Metter, our number 866-4326. Nate is calling from Churchville. Hey, Nate, what's up, buddy?
Hey, boys. This is a tough one.
Yeah, I hear you. So, like, you got a Metcalf story for us?
I do. So, most people might not know if you don't know, he'd been living in Rochester forever. He was actually out here in Churchville, and he coached the high school team for a couple seasons with his kids on the team. And if you knew Metter as a player, he was a fiery guy, and he was the exact same way as a coach. There was one game where he disagreed with an official's call and got a bench minor, we'll put it that way. And that goal ended up being the game-winning goal that the other team scored on the power play. Comes to practice the next day with 2 pizzas and a pack of Gatorade for everybody as an apology. So that's the kind of guy he was. He was fiery, but he knew that wow, tough one, man.
Yeah. No. Nate, thanks for sharing that. And I did not realize he was coaching hockey there in Churchville. Deanna writing in. You could write to us. He's at AKA Mike Danger. I'm at my name, Gene Battaglia, or the Fan Rochester. Metcalf and Rochester were the perfect fit, and he could hurt you both ways. On the score sheet and with his fists, we'll always remember Tom George when he scored, referring to him as the Metter.
Yeah, the Metter. He's great. And I was fortunate enough to play in a couple of charity hockey games with Jody Gage, with Metcalf, with Langdon. Just great guys who had a lot of success and made Rochester home. That championship season, that 96 team,
so much fun.
And the guys before them that won titles, you come to realize just how great our community is, and it's a hard thing to explain from people outside of our area about the quality of life in our community. But these guys saw it firsthand as champions, and they loved it to the point where they said, we could probably go anywhere, but we're going to stay here.
The thing, Scott Metcalf, one story I didn't know that Jody Gage shared, though. So Metcalf has been with the team since the late 80s, 89, and it gets to 96. And here comes this brash, young coach with this Boston background, diminutive guy, Tortorella, with a type A personality, a type A of a type A, just a hothead. Yeah. Are you shocked to learn that at the beginning Metcalf and Tortorella didn't get along?
No. Not at all.
But by the end, you win a cup.
That's right.
It all worked.
That's right.
Yeah. We'll talk to a guy who covered that team, covered a lot of his games, and I'm sure he's kind of bummed about this too. Kevin O'Clubbage will be joining us later this hour.
No question. We will have Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final tonight in Edmonton as the Panthers look to even that series at a game apiece. Head coach Paul Maurice on improvements from Game 1.
We do think there's a few things that we can do a little bit better, and we do a couple of those things a little bit better. It'll change some of the things, but I don't have the chances for and against as a necessary negative for the Florida Panthers in zone time. So the game was 3-3 after 3. It's probably fair. I think that's probably a just score. The two best teams, we think we can get a little bit better. There's probably some things they're going to want to get a little better at, but I don't think there's going to be sustained domination in the series.
So Game 2 tonight in the Stanley Cup Final.
866-4FAN, 866-4326. A lot of memories regarding Scott Metcalf. Frank calling from the city. Hey, Frank, what's going on, man?
Good afternoon, guys. Sad day for hockey fans all over. I went. They played Game 4 in Syracuse for the conference finals in '96, and I remember Scott Metcalf having a hat trick that game. One of his goals being a shorthanded goal. I think it was Scott Nickel had a major for boarding, and Metcalf and Kameniev had both had shorthanded goals. They really just kind of sealed up the series. They won that game. They go up 3-1 in the series, came back home and finished in Game 5, and he was just such a personal guy off the ice too. He attended all the Emmer games. Would hang out with fans and just sit with fans and watch the games, and just a great all-around guy. And Roger was better for having him as an adopted son.
Yeah, Frank, thank you for sharing that. It brings home the point that he wasn't just about the physicality. The guy could score.
For sure.
This is why he was a first-round pick. He had both, and the idea that you could have a beer. I had a beer once with him. It was, gosh. This is in the days of CMF when I'm just kind of getting my feet into this business, and you had Rich Gensler and you had Mark Cronin and a couple. We just go over and I'm just talking hockey with Scott Metcalf like he's on the Amerks, but just a normal guy,
right?
Talking to everybody.
Yeah, he'll be missed. We'll reflect on his life with Kevin O'Clubbage, Rochester Business Journal, Pickin' Splinters. He's going to join us in the sports bar here before we close up shop at 6 o'clock. Up next, we got a round of shots on deck.
Yeah, we'll set you up for some of the things going on this weekend. What did Rick Carlisle say after the game, Danger? I don't know if you saw this. He really took a detour right at the beginning there, which some people are kind of reacting to. And I saved this one last. I mean, it's just a day where we don't have good news. It's also not good news as one of our regulars is going to have a life changer.
Okay, we'll get to a round of shots and Kevin O'Clubbage to talk more Scotty Metcalf on the way next on the Fan Rochester.
And Perloff on 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan Rochester. It's the wake-up call your snooze button has been dreading. The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
Really tough day for our hockey community, for Rochester in general. Former Amherst, the Hall of Famer, Scott Metcalf passing today. He played 9 years with Rochester, part of that last Calder Cup team in 1996. Scott Metcalf was 58. Tonight's Game 2 of the Stanley Cup Final. Edmonton up 1-0 on the Panthers. Chris Knobloch, the head coach of Edmonton.
Physical play is important, but probably staying out of the penalty box is more important. So we want to be as physical as possible without taking penalties, and we want to check well. And I think to do that, you have to be moving your feet, having your sticks in good places. So going forward through the series, we want to be as physical as possible. But the primary focus also is making sure that we're not giving them power play opportunities.
Breaking news is Baltimore Orioles 8 Corbin Burns will undergo Tommy John. The Orioles tonight in Sacramento. The Red Wings play again in Worcester. Gene Battaglia, The Fan, Rochester.
Bone-crunching hits, backboard-shattering dunks, bat flips, and hat tricks. 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Back in the sports bar, Danger and Battaglia. Glad you're with us. Kevin O'Klubja, picking splinters, Rochester Business Journal. We'll talk some Scott Metcalf. But before we close up shop, for last call here coming up before 6 o'clock. Before that, time for a round of shots.
Yeah, the Knicks are not the only semifinalist team to fire their head coach this season. Just 8 days ago, the season ended for the Dallas Stars in the Western Conference Final against Edmonton. Today, well, they blew out their head coach, Pete DeBoer. Their GM cited the need to have a different voice. Now, certainly, this had to be the A factor to what degree. The relationship DeBoer had with his goaltender, Jake Ottinger, giving Andre the quick hook in Game 5, then citing his deficient play against this particular opponent post-game. Did you know this? Dallas joining the 75, 76, 77 Islanders is the only teams in the expansion era to lose in the round before the Stanley Cup Final 3 straight years.
There is the answer to the question, who's more important to an organization in hockey, the head coach or the goaltender? Because it was icy that last game, and DeBoer didn't hold back. He probably let his frustrations and his goaltender get the best of him. Showing up the goaltender, of course, we've seen this through history, right? Like, what would the Canadians have been if they kept Patrick Waugh and didn't deal him to Colorado? Because he won cups in Colorado.
I think he wanted out of. Yeah, right.
Because of how badly it ended. And then it was like, okay, well, we're moving on from you. Ottinger is one of the best goaltenders in the world. And to get shown up by your coach, who hasn't won anything, they're gonna side with the superstar goaltender on this one.
Well, it's almost like, did DeBoer try to get fired by doing that post game? By pulling him I
don't know. I think that's a fiery guy. That's a competitor. That's somebody that demands more out of his players. And he's not wrong. The Oilers own Otter. They own him. You're dealing with two of the best players in the world when you're facing Edmonton, but they have his number. There's no question about it. He's not wrong, but the way he did it.
You don't say that.
The way he did it really shows up the goaltender. I don't know that it's going to ruin his confidence moving forward or anything like that, but if you wanted to know who's more important to a franchise in the NHL, the head coach or the franchise goaltender, it would be the franchise all-world goaltender in Jake Ottinger.
That's the 9th coaching change in the NHL this offseason.
How many times is this?
9.
9 times.
Wow.
Speaking of the Knicks, Mark Stein is reporting that the Knicks are going to ask for permission to speak to the Dallas Mavericks about their head coach, Jason Kidd. The Knicks' interest in Kidd, according to this report, is, quote, serious. Now, it's not clear whether the Mavs are going to allow it or not. Stein is also reporting there's another team that says, no, don't even come asking. If someone asked the Houston Rockets for permission to speak with Imo Udoka, the answer is going to be no.
So I don't like this story because this story shows that the Knicks fired Tom Thibodeau and didn't really have a plan. Your plan is what? We're just going to reach out to guys and somebody's going to come to New York? You had to have a plan.
The plan is this was plan A, but you have to go through these hoops in order to get. I understand why Kidd would want out. I would understand why Kidd and Leon Rose have a good relationship. But now if you're Dallas, like, okay, well, what can you send? Hey, you know what? We want Brunson back. No, you can't have Brunson back.
Right.
Well,
I
getting
just
him for free.
This feels like they didn't have a plan before they fired Tibbs, which if you're somebody who's angry that they fired Tibbs, this should make you more angry because they fired him and they don't really have an idea of who they're going to bring in to replace him.
Unless Stein's been wrong a few times, unless they already do have the permission. Unless they already know. And this is just a negotiating thing. Who knows? After an exciting win in Game 1, Indiana Pacers head coach Rick Carlisle began his press conference not with his thoughts on Halliburton's big shot, another one, not with his thoughts on winning. He gave his thoughts on Doris Burke, expressing disappointment that a story had leaked that she was going to be replaced on ESPN and ABC next season. Carlisle saying how Burke has set an example for his daughter and for many others that want to enter this field.
That's fair. And she is a trailblazer. She's done a great job for a long time. We have fun. I don't want to disrespect Doris, but the broadcast is not as good as it used to be when it was Van Gundy and Jackson. She's good. She's a trailblazer. She sets an example. I just want it to be back the way it was. I know I'm not going to get that. But
thank you.
Wow, Carlisle going out of his way.
Yeah.
No, I mean, that's going out of your way. You just won Game 1 of a series that nobody's picking your team to win.
And you're going to lay out for Doris. Well, that's his confidence. Like, you're going to wait and listen to what I have to say.
Well, he's kind of under the radar. Like, we forget how good of a coach that guy is, how long he's been doing it, because he's been kind of transient through his career. But he's won. He's a champion. And they D up when they need to D up. And you've got an absolute assassin in Halliburton.
Just one game in the majors today. The Rays over the Marlins 4-2. The Rockies look to make it 4 straight wins. That sounds really weird to say.
Are you nervous?
No. They open a series at home tonight against the
They're
Mets.
hot, Gene.
Yeah, that was the Marlins.
They're hot. They're looking for 4 straight.
Red Sox and Yankees, that's a highlight this baseball weekend. Walker Buehler for the Sox in the Bronx tonight against Will Warren. It's also going to be the Sunday night game on ESPN. Dodgers are in St. Louis, the struggling Braves in San Francisco, and probably the matchup, Cubs and Detroit. Skubal on the mound tonight for the Tigers, the beginning of the 3-game set.
I'm going to go ahead and claim my free Apple TV Plus subscription there, my 3 months for free, since I went through the whole iPhone debacle a few months ago.
Oh.
I'll go ahead and claim that just so I can watch this game tonight. That'll be fun.
Yeah, and while you're there, watch a little Severance. I'll add it to my list.
I've added it to the list. It's on the list.
Danger, you were out yesterday. We didn't mention this yesterday, but since he's such a good friend of the show, Andy Behrens, who joins us every week during the football season to talk fantasy football, he was let go by Yahoo this week. He is a leader in the industry. He is a super guy, and I have no doubt that Andy is going to end up actually in a better spot.
No question. Love that guy. Always love talking fantasy football with that guy, but just a fun guy to converse with about football. He did it with a lot of personality. And, look, businesses are cruel. And, sometimes you wear out your welcome. Sometimes you can be of value to your organization, and then they no longer find what you do to be valuable. And Andy's work speaks for itself. Andy's character speaks for itself. Andy's going to be fine wherever he ends up. I would imagine we're going to remain in contact with Andy, and we'll find a way to get Andy on the sports bar again this fantasy football season.
Yeah, I reached out to him, and he's, it's one of those things that admittedly it stings you, but then he'll regroup. He'll be better than ever.
I mean, right now, if you're Andy Behrens, dude, enjoy the gift that has been given to you. You have the gift of time. I mean, he's been constant, nonstop football and baseball for how many seasons?
You say that, it doesn't work that way for everybody. When I got laid off, I jumped over here a week later.
Yeah.
Because, no, I want to work. And you know what? Had I waited with the gift of time, that wouldn't have worked out.
So it could have worked out.
No, but you'll
never know.
You'll never know. But if the opportunity presents itself,
sure,
go get it.
Sure. Well, I have a feeling with Andy, opportunities will present themselves. But if he chooses to lay low for a couple of months, maybe go to Wrigley Field a couple of times.
Well,
Nothing wrong with that either. We got to get to Kevin O'Klubja. He's one of our favorites. Picking Splinters, Rochester Business Journal. He's covered the Rochester Americans for a long, long time and certainly has plenty to share about the life and career of the fallen Scotty Metcalf. Met her passing away earlier this morning, the age of 58. So Kevin O stopping by the sports bar to talk some Scott Metcalf next for Last Call on the Fan Rochester.
You're in the Battaglia on the Sports Leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Last call in the sports bar. Hope you have yourself a great weekend. Our hearts are heavy today upon hearing the news that early this morning, Amerks Hall of Famer, Calder Cup champion, Scott Metcalf passed away at the age of 58. A lot of heavy hearts throughout the Rochester community today. And somebody that knew him well, covered him for many, many years. Kevin O. Klubja, Rochester Business Journal, Pickin' Splinters, joining us now to share some thoughts on the passing of Metter. Kevin, how are you holding up today, pal?
Yeah, it's a tough day, obviously, because Scott Metcalf meant a lot to the organization, and he really was. Here's a guy who grew up in Toronto, and suddenly Rochester became his home. He raised his family here, was embedded in the community, and really was what Amerk hockey and Amerk fans are about. And I've seen, you just look at Facebook posts from the Amerk site and the comments from fans, and this is a guy who was all about blue collar hockey, and he probably turned people who never would have been hockey fans into avid Amerk fans. So it is a tough day. And he was what if you played, he was what you wanted in a teammate, no question.
Kevin, you're talking about that social media right now, and this is only from the Amerks putting this out there. There's been certainly others. 393 shares. And you can imagine how many comments are on each share. He was one, to me, he was one of us. Just your thoughts on Scott Metcalf, the person, because many of us, myself included, post-playing, you could have a beer with this guy.
You probably did. Plain and simple, you probably did. I mean, I talked to Scotty Nickel earlier this afternoon, and he said, you go out on a Monday, you go out on a Tuesday, everybody knew Metter. He was the mayor. And it's very true. And why he, obviously he was very accepted by the fans because they saw him as just a down-to-earth, have a beer, work hard, sign an autograph, sit down and tell stories. And he'll have stories and he'll listen to your stories. And it didn't matter what it was. He was the kind of guy at 8 o'clock and, all of a sudden it's 1 o'clock and you're still laughing.
He's somebody that we remember as being gritty, kind of a tough guy. We had Jody Gage on with us earlier, and he reminded us, hey, you can paint him that way, but this guy was also very, very skilled as a player. What do you remember about Scott Metcalf and his skill and ability on the ice?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he was a big, big part of that Calder Cup team in '96 with Dan Frawley and Scott Nickel. That was the checking line, the defensive line, maybe for about 45, 50 seconds in the final game, Game 7, when the Amerks were up 2-1, Portland could not get out of their own end because of that line, and they were just relentless. And when I talked to Dane Jackson earlier, the captain of that team, when I talked to him today, he said it was just like a bunch of, they were howling dogs. They just dumped the puck in and go get it and bang, and that's how they played. And the off of that, and because they're playing against the other team's top line, they created scoring chances too. And I think he was a 3-time 20-goal scorer.
Yeah.
So he's still 7th in assists all time in the franchise and 11th in goals. So, yeah, he could play the game as well.
Yeah, 9 seasons as a Rochester American. Kevin, we're never going to see anything like that again. It's hard for me to imagine having that sort of longevity in the minors.
Right. And it's, guys don't want to stay that long for the most part. I mean, well, not for the most part. It's just a different game. You think about the number of Amerks who played here and ended up making this their home. It doesn't happen anymore. There's very few that, occasionally, but it's, there used to be 1 or 2 every 3 or 4 years. And now, I can't think of the last one who stayed here. Frankie Mathot, maybe? Might be somebody after
Pacer.
that. But
Nathan Pacer?
I mean, yeah, Pacer's kind of...
Oh, yeah, Nathan Page. And Clark MacArthur, although Clark has moved since then. But Clark was living here for a while.
Is there a connection to the champion?
What's that?
I was going to say, is there a connection to the championship teams and the ability to plant roots in Rochester? Because I think we see it in the postseason. Like, the barn is a different place in the postseason, and it's a fun place to play. We haven't yet tasted that since 1996 to see this team hoisting a Calder Cup. And I imagine when you make those rounds and you're around town, you start to grow affectionate for what our community is beyond just the support that they get through the course of the regular season.
I think that's part of it, although the game has changed and they're just not teams, most are controlled by they're all controlled by the NHL parent team. They're not bringing back, the veteran leaders like they used to. And those guys are still looking for opportunity perhaps somewhere else. So it's a different era. And yeah, I mean, several people said there won't be another Scott Metcalf, and there won't. I mean, plain and simple, there was just one Metter.
What was the relationship between Scott Metcalf and John Tortorella? I just remember that year started off really poorly, thinking, oh my gosh, Tortorella might be like a one and done here in Rochester at this point. But somehow, Kevin, they turned it around. They ended up winning the whole darn thing. Yeah, and
I don't think in the beginning Torts saw Metter as one of his guys. He was a free agent signing. He was a local signee, just like Craig Sharon. But I think over time, over time, Metter grew on him, and he understood the importance of Metter in the room and on the ice. And, I think there's great respect there.
What will you remember most about Scott Metcalf and the time that you had covering him, spending with him?
Just, he was a person. He was just down to earth. There was nothing phony about him whatsoever. He told you what he thought, and he told you how it was, and he loved to laugh. It's kind of like, 58 years, way too young, but he didn't get cheated in life.
Yeah, if you want more, Kevin's got a remembrance up on Pickin' Splinters. Amherst teammates remember Scott Metcalf, the ultimate competitor. Kevin, tough day for hockey fans, tough day for Rochester, and appreciate you giving us a few minutes and sharing your memories here.
Absolutely. Have a great one, guys.
Have a good weekend, Kev. Thanks. Kevin Okolbja. You can read his work at Pickin' Splinters, also Rochester Business Journal. Nice to get his thoughts on Scott Metcalf, gone too soon, age 58, died suddenly this morning. And, boy, a lot of not just the hockey community, just the community at large sharing stories of their time with Scott Metcalf. I think everybody has one. He affectionately just referred to him as the mayor of Rochester. I mean, the guy was known everywhere, and everybody has that Scott Metcalf story.
Monday, we'll talk to Rochester sports icon Mike Catalana as the Bills will be beginning mandatory minicamp. It's going to be an interesting week of Bills news coming up next week. We'll preview that with Mike. Also, Keith McMillan, WFAN's KM to AM.
Yes.
Do we have a Knicks coach by Monday, or are we going to go through the whole process here? It's funny how, at least I haven't read it anywhere, nobody knows really what happened here with Tibbs.
We'll get into the Knicks with him as well, but we've got a couple of interesting series as well with the Yankees and the Mets. And, I'm not going to say that the Mets are going to lose any games to the Rockies, the lowly Rockies this weekend.
It's like you're willing it.
It would be fun to talk about. It would be fun to talk about if the Rockies were to get 2 of 3. I don't know. I'm not willing that. I'm not wishing that for your weekend, Gino. But the Yankees and the Red Sox is interesting, and of course we'll have a conversation about that with Keith McMillan from our Odyssey Sports sister station WFAN in New York City, KM to AM. That's Monday afternoon here in the Sports Bar. We appreciate you listening. We appreciate you watching on our YouTube channel as well at The Fan Rochester. You can like and subscribe while you're there. We appreciate that. If you missed Armando Salguero, find it wherever you get your podcasts. Just search out the Sports Bar on your favorite platform or go on the free-to-download Odyssey app, and you can listen to any part of the show that you may have missed. Search out the Sports Bar, like and follow there as well.
Hanging up now.
Unbelievable. JR Sport Brief next on The Fan Rochester. Have a great weekend.
You're listening to the Sports Bar with Danger.